Hey, welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and we are going to talk about how to get out of a slump or a photographic rut. So, without any further ado, I will bring in these guys here, Dwight and Dave. Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing, Greg? Hey,
Pretty
How's
Dave.
good.
everyone doing?
Really
Doing
good.
great.
So, I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all been there with in a slump or in a photographic rut. And I think we might have even talked about this on the show before. I'm not sure. Um, but in case we haven't, we're going to do it tonight. So, Dave, you brought all our show notes. Basically, you brought them to our attention here, and
Mhm.
um, I think this is a good discussion to have because um, my worst time of year for photography is in the spring when it's
Mhm.
between the time the snow stops looking pretty and turns into snert, which is like snow and dirt mixed together. And then and then between that and when the flowers start blooming, there's
Mhm.
nothing to take a picture of. Um, so, are you experiencing a bit of a rut? Is this why you brought it up, or?
Well, it goes at times. It goes at times, and also for me, it also depends on what I'm doing. If you have events going on or something happening, it's easy because like, oh, here's an event, I can take some pictures there, do something different. But if you get like between holidays and you're just in the grind of day to day work, all of a sudden it gets to the point of okay, I'm seeing the same thing every day because I'm going from home to work to maybe something on the weekend, but it's the same thing over and over again. And it just gets to the point of there's nothing new. And like I said, we hit spring a little bit earlier. So we get you know, oh, it's springtime. So you have the blooming, you got the flowers, you have something changing where at least for us now, once you hit early June around Pittsburgh, it's green. We love green. We're happy it's green, but it's going to be the same shade of green until we get to September.
Yeah,
So there's not a lot of change outside of like I said, unless you have an event happening. You have a summer
yeah,
event happening or something you can take photos of, but for a lot of times it's like, well, I'm in my daily grind. What do I
yeah,
take a picture of?
yeah. How about you, Dwight? I'm sure you've experienced a photographic rut before, or are you in one now? What's going on with your side
I'm
of it?
100% in one right now. So I think this topic right now is perfect kind of for what I'm going through. I think I'll echo what Dave said relative to, seeing the same things. Hey, granted, I live close to one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, but how many times can I go down there and shoot the same shots? The variables would be the weather, what's the sun doing, what's the light doing. I don't have a lot of time, during the week to do it, and weekends are kind of busy too. But yeah, I'm in a rut right now. For me to go down to Laguna and take additional pictures of stuff that I've already taken, I think it has kind of put me in the mindset that I'm at right now. And I think it is a mindset. I know that I can change it up. I know I can go down there and shoot from different angles, shoot low to high, shoot high to low. But yeah, I'm definitely in a rut, and I think it has to do with going to the same locations and
Yeah.
maybe not trying a new style of photography and that type of thing. So yeah, good timing on this one.
Yeah. So these are some of the things that we're going to kind of touch on here tonight. Like I said, Dave provided us with a list of things here, and we don't have to cover them all, but um, the first one is just simply take a break. Uh, Sometimes you feel the need or you feel the urge that you got to take a picture of something, and I have that urge or that need at sometimes. And to be honest with you, if I can get a good shot of something, it makes me feel so much better. But when it comes to getting into a slump, sometimes you just got to walk away from photography for a while and just take a break. It could be frustrating trying to cope with the fact that you've got to take that picture. But you know, um, it's a good time to do different things in your life. Take a hike or ride your bike or something, right? So that's just one of the things that uh, you could do to deal with this slump. And who knows, maybe on these little adventures, you might see something that you might want to come back to and get a picture of. So, uh, it could end up being a win-win. Um, Dwight, the next point here is change your environment. So you talked about going to the beach. Um, how do you think changing the environment might help you in your situation?
One of the things that I learned going through the iPhone photography school that I went through was there's always enough stuff to shoot just right around your house, and I haven't really taken the time to really dig in and look at that. So that's one option for me. I think, going to a different town, maybe going to San Diego, maybe downtown to maybe do some street photography, get into kind of a different genre. I think it's gonna take me to get to new locations. I think one of the things with me is I think I'm trying to do too much. I'm trying too many editing programs. I'm trying too many different styles. I'm interested in film. I'm interested in a lot of things right now. Film emulations, the digital. Um, and that might be, well, tonight I will have one of my photos kind of color graded with a film emulation that kind of piqued a little bit of interest in me and kind of moving maybe in a different direction as an alternative to my mindset right now. But yeah, I think changing the location, maybe changing the how you approach that location, and yeah, I think that's probably a good point to discuss right there. Again, I think Dave captured that well in his opening remarks relative to location, and sometimes the same thing just gets to be monotonous.
Yeah. Was there anything on our list here, Dave, that kind of spoke to you as far as, what could help you get out of a rut or others?
I mean, there's a few of them that kind of hit here too, but um, one of them is a little bit of, I don't want to, I would say change your edit. It's one that I added a little further down, or try a new app. So a lot of
Oh,
times you kind of get stuck doing, I don't want to say stuck, but you do get into a pattern of I always do this and I always do this and I always do this, which is great. It gives you a particular look and style that people are used to. But a lot of times you're like, I want to do something different. I'm always doing the same, take it in here, move here, and sometimes just want to try something different. And one thing that I don't want to say I discovered, but I discovered for myself was that Photomator, which you scroll down the mobile Photomator and it has LUTs down below. And I thought it was, oh, that's for, if you have a LUT, you can import it. I didn't realize they had a good amount of preset LUTs that you could try.
oh yeah.
I never clicked on it. And so it was like, oh, this gives me something new and different to try, especially for photos where, and when I do the photos, not necessarily in Photomator, but one of my photos of my recent photos, it was taken during a run I had yesterday. And it like I said, it's very green around here, but I could have went for, ultra realistic, but everything was almost the same shade of green. So I tried something different. In this case, I used the photographic style on the iPhone, and I normally don't use the cozy one. That's kind of further on the right. It kind of gives it changes the color, makes it a little bit more washed out. But just trying something different that way. So, not only changing a genre where it's like, I'm a landscape shooter, I shoot landscapes, but like Dwight said, if like what he shoots most of the time, it's beach scenes and it's just the housing, not housing, but it's the buildings around. And it's like, well, from the same location, you could try, okay, I'm going to focus on street photography, type item, or go for more structural shots than I'm used to. Just getting out of that, breaking that habit. Because once you're in a habit, a lot of times you're just kind of stuck there doing the same thing over and over again. You just need to have something that breaks it and gives you that fresh opening.
Yeah. Trying a new app definitely does work because when I got Luminar Neo, it just ignited a whole new urge in me to edit, and I'm really liking that program. The mobile version is okay, but it's missing some of the real cool features that I like to use on the desktop app. And I think I mentioned before that it's basically changed my style, like the style of my photos, like the finished product. I think they look a little different now than they have for quite a few years. And Dwight says, "You are done with mobile editing." Well, I don't know, maybe, but I would say, okay, before Luminar Neo, I would do probably 95% of the editing on mobile. Now I'm probably doing 90% of it on the desktop.
Yeah.
Still doing 10% on mobile. But I mean, that's because there's a bunch of other apps that I have and like to use and try out and things like that. And like you, Dwight, I'm looking at film sim stuff and having some fun with that. Mood camera is I don't know how I can't say enough good stuff about mood camera. I don't use it enough, I can say that. But because quite frankly, Dwight, you got me shooting raw. Like I use reflex for shooting my Bayer raw images because I also really like what comes out of them in the edit. But I'm really getting to like mood camera because it's got like the new feature that you can create your own preset, I guess. So once I get something dialed into my style, I can create a preset and use that for probably just about anything I shoot. But one of the things in this outline here is seeking inspiration, and I love looking at other people's photos, whether it's in our podcast photography group, um, or our Facebook group rather, or other groups that I'm in, um, Instagram, Glass, Vero. I'm in way too many places, obviously, but there's a lot of inspiration to be had. And sometimes I will see a picture of something that if I can capture something similar to that where I live, then I'll bloody well go do it. I'll go and see if I can't, capture that style that person took. One, it's challenging. Two, it's something maybe different than what I normally do. So, that's a good way to, excuse me, get out of a rut is, um, go looking at other people's images. And hopefully it doesn't negatively affect you by getting you more and more depressed because some of them are, so good. Um, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I look at that I know I'll never take a picture that good. Whether it's because they're using a high-end mirrorless camera or their location, if they're in the mountain ranges of the Rockies or the Alps or whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to get those pictures, but it's inspiring to know that um, there's stuff out there that you can capture. Um, so Dwight, what else you got? Something from the list here that caught your eye?
Yeah, I think trying new apps is really important. If you guys remember when we had Alex Fox on, the creator for Mood Camera, one of the suggestions we had was allowing people to create their own presets. And if you go to the mood camera subreddit on Reddit, there's some amazing recipes these people are putting together, and I'm copying them and I'm storing them in the cloud. I'm actually adding them to my phone. The problem with that is now I've got 50 presets on my phone. So, you know, what do? Do I take all 50 of them and then figure out which one you like? And that gets tough too, because if you have 50, you know, they all start looking the same. But man, some of the stuff that has been incorporated with this latest release of Mood Camera is really exciting. And I think I am going to start focusing on, you know, a little bit more of the film emulations, Visco, VSCO. Again, one of my pictures this week is of a Visco edit, and there's creators starting to put their presets up there. You know, that's really exciting to see, you know, how that's working. And I keep getting cat shots.
Yeah, for if you're just listening, you're missing it. Go to the YouTube video and check it out. But Dave's
that's pretty
cat's
funny.
getting right up in front of his face here. It's
You
so
know, and I
funny.
think with what you're saying, Greg, you know, as far as, you know, connecting with other people, you know, who inspires you on social media, I've got a few. You know, some of these people use Hipstamatic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, some of these people just do really, you know, grungy, you know, black and white street scenes. I mean, all that stuff is really exciting. And, you know, I wouldn't mind going. Remember, I'm new to photography just the last couple of years. So I wouldn't mind going on, you know, like a photo walk with somebody, or a team, and just kind of get, you know, listening, you know, what are they thinking about, you know, as they're approaching, you know, different aspects of their photography. I think, you know, Palm Springs is going to be one of the ones that I'm going to do here soon, because they have still the old retro hotels with the, you know, with the neon signs, you know, with the cactus next to it. I mean, I think I can really get into that. It's just a matter of me getting out there to do it without, you know, kind of being rushed, you know, with the family standing there tapping their feet. I maybe have to be a solo run or with a group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
And
mean,
then
there's ways to get inspired. It's just right now, this is a good topic, but I'll figure my way out of it, because this is, you know, what I'm passionate about.
yeah. And Dave, you know Palm Springs. You were there what, last year, was it?
Yeah, last year I was there visiting my dad.
Yeah.
So
Did
no,
you-
actually
so-
actually 2 years ago. Sorry. It
Okay,
was
yeah.
it was 23. It was in October 23. But yeah, so we went to a lot of the areas around there. But we did go to the downtown part of Palm Springs, where, like you said, they still have a lot of the retro 1960s neon pink and teal colored items.
And did you find yourself compelled to take pictures of that stuff?
Oh
Just
yeah.
because it was something different?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean
Yeah.
that, like I said, and now not everyone can travel. I understand there's financial reasons, there's work reasons, family reasons you may not be able to travel, but traveling to a different location where everything's new for you. And like I said, when we went to Palm Springs, there's a giant 30-foot statue of Marilyn Monroe there that you can actually walk under her legs. I mean, it's massive. And there all this new stuff. And not only new, but it's a different environment where we're going from where I am, where, you know, it's what is it? I don't know what you call the climate here, but it's, you know, we have warm to hot summers, cold winters, we have we have lots of greenery. Palm Springs is a desert. It's pretty much
and
a
it's
desert,
pretty much
so
the
it's
same.
completely different.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same weather year round there, right?
They do
No,
well.
it gets
It's
really hot right about now, and
Yeah,
relatively cool
Mhm.
in the summertime. Yeah.
But
But,
they
I mean-
don't experience the 4 seasons.
No,
Right.
no.
No.
They experience just, and this is just like me talking to my dad. In the winter, they'll have highs in the 50s.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and they'll have lows that are close to freezing, but not quite freezing. So they don't have snow. They don't really have their rainy season isn't that bad because you're in the desert. But in August, it does get to 120 degrees for
Yeah.
stretches
So
where
it's
it's,
for
yeah.
somebody in Palm Springs, they could fall into a rut probably quite easily, I would think.
You can get, because there's not a lot, there are times where there's a good amount of changes. There's times where, especially in the desert, you have the bloom areas where like
Oh
the
yeah.
spring it just blooms like crazy. But you have, like I said, I could definitely see someone in July through September, let's say, the really hot crazy where it, like I said, it 120 degrees Fahrenheit,
Yeah.
where literally it's like, oh, you want to walk your dog outside. Well, make sure you walk your dog first thing in the morning or late at night. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you will actually burn the dog's paws,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
your shoes will start to melt on the concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an aerial tramway outside of Palm Springs that will
Mhm.
take you to the top of a mountain that does have snow 365 days a year, which
Yeah.
is
Oh
super
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just
we
think
went
it.
up
Yeah,
on that. That is so
yeah,
neat.
yeah, it's neat. Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is just get off off the Palm Canyon Drive there. Marilyn Monroe's, she's off that. Just get into the some of the back streets, some of the old you
Mhm.
know not so well known motels, and off the main drag, and just try to set up on a couple of those and get the lighting right, and use some of the
Mhm.
the Cinebloom filters that I have to give it kind of a retro look. Yeah, Visco has just added halation and bloom to their editing, which
Mm.
looks kind of fun. So I'll probably be playing with that a little bit too. Yeah, all is not lost. It's just looking for different avenues to explore,
Mhm.
and I think we've all been there. And I think you can apply the same thing to many aspects of your life, right? Not just photography. Sometimes you just have to
Oh
step
yeah.
back and take a look at it. So
Yeah. Like if I go to Toronto, I get just I could for hours I can just take pictures of buildings or you know the street stuff, people, just there's so much it's sensory overload for a guy like me.
Mhm.
I live in a little hick town 2.5 miles northwest of Toronto, um, where you don't see any of that stuff. And so it's all new. It's a new environment. It's uh it's dipping my toes into new genres of photography that I don't normally do, like street
Mhm.
photography. I just don't do that around here. Um, the architecture stuff I could do a little bit around here, but the tallest building we have in this town's 8 stories, and it's not very photogenic, you know? Um, so going to a new location like that is definitely, a good way to break yourself out of a slump because like I said, it's sensory overload, especially if, you know, especially if it's really nice and there's a lot of cool things there. Um, so another thing that's on the list here is connecting with others. And, we it's so hard to be everywhere online, in all these Facebook groups and, this social media platform, that platform. I I said a couple years ago I want to trim down my presence on social, and I think I have a little bit, but um, where I get the most engagement is probably in Facebook groups, and next to that, I would probably have to say Glass, even more so than Instagram. Um, so, it's while you're engaging with other people, if you ask for a critique on something, they'll, somebody is bound to give you a critique of some sort. And I think that's another good way to kind of break out of a rut is somebody can tell you something about your image that, I mean, you could look at it and think, oh, I think that's pretty darn good. And then they can have a different viewpoint, where they could say, well, this isn't, really great, and but this is not bad. And you think to yourself, well, gee, maybe I can go back and reshoot that if it's possible, and maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can make it better. So, um, connecting with others is a great way to. I mean, even on X, there's a few accounts on there where the person will say, "Show me your pictures of flowers," reposting all, and they'll have 4, 5, 6, 700 people put a picture of a flower on there. Well, then all of a sudden now you're just going through doom scrolling, I guess you could say, through these posts that people are putting on of their flowers, and it could spark some creativity, whether it's in an edit or the way it's shot or whatever. And sometimes it's a good way to find new people with like-minded interests to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so uh, I don't know. There's
Well,
I think
and Greg,
connecting with others.
yeah, I want to also springboard off of the Twitter thing.
Mhm.
Blue Sky is very similar. I've seen people
Yeah.
on Blue Sky do that, and with Blue Sky, you can select topics that you're posting
Right.
to. So you'll put your post and you can say, my topic is photography or photography of flowers. And then it's easy to see similar ones together. The other thing
Yeah.
is if you have an Apple store in your that's close by or in your town, they did, I don't know how frequently they have now. They do have sessions, photography
Mhm.
sessions. And they even have photo walks and they're completely free. Like I said, I don't know how frequent they are as they used to be. But they have things where you can, it's not, we have to pay $50 to go on a walk or do, literally it's, show up at the Apple store and everyone's using an iPhone. So it's very similar versus going to a photo walk. And honestly, that may be useful too, is going to a photo walk where there's a wide variety of hardware. Someone's using a $6,000 DSLR. Someone else is using a point and shoot. You're using your iPhone. Someone else is using a Samsung phone, where you're getting all this variety, and you can see with the variety what happens there too.
Yeah. Yeah, and the closest Apple store to me is in Toronto. Well, not the closest one, sorry. There are a couple of ones that are closer, and I don't know, they're not nearly as big as the one in Toronto, but they may have sessions, I don't know. But either
Yeah,
way, it's still like an
most
hour
of
and a
them do.
half to the nearest one.
You can log into the Apple website and it'll tell you what classes they have. And Greg, you reminded me of something. When I first started my photography journey, and I don't think it's any secret, I went through the iPhone photography school, and they have a
Mhm.
dedicated Facebook group there that you're supposed to post your photos that you took and edited, and then you're supposed to include the appropriate hashtag, whether it's iPhone for hashtag IPS iPhone photography school, shadows, something like that. But the requirement was you put one of your photos in, and then you have to critique 2 to 3 others. And when I first started doing it, I put my photo in, which was, all my sliders were to the right. Everything was too saturated and, too bright or whatever. I would go in there and I would say, nice photo, nice photo. And it wasn't until I started getting into editing to really understand, okay, it's a nice photo, but why? So I've been able to help other people understand why they have a nice photo and to be able to constructively uh, give advice, as asked. So that's a good way to grow too. And I'm sure there's other groups, like that. I think Reddit
Mhm.
has a post processing subreddit where people are asking, hey, how did I do? How can I improve it? The danger there is, are the keyboard warriors who, aren't nice no matter what. You just have to have the tolerance to get, through those
Yeah.
folks. But they
Mhm.
exist everywhere. We can't help that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that I probably should take another journey through there, and maybe helping other people will help inspire me further as well.
Yeah, getting a photo critiqued could end up being the most mean thing to ever have to go through, because our photography is very personal to us, and
Mhm.
if you're gonna get a critique, you have to be prepared to hear the worst. And I love it when my photos get critiqued. Um, I don't take offense to it because if the critique is done properly, the person doing the critique leaves their personal opinion out of it. A proper critique will be, um, it should never include "I think." It should never have, that in the sentence. It should say, um, "This should be like this," or "That should be like that." And even to say, "If it had this, it would be better," that's an opinion, and that should not be in a critique. And I know some of this stuff because some friends of mine in our local camera club went and took a course on how to do a critique.
Hmm.
And that was one of the things that they brought back was that, you know, a personal opinion should never be included in a critique. So don't ever hesitate to get a photo critiqued, but just be prepared that, the person doing the critique, and again, if it's done correctly, um, they could be harsh, but that's what it's all about. It's basically the school of hard knocks, I guess you could say. And again, I love it when I get my stuff critiqued because it helps me improve the image and improve my work going forward as long as it stays in my little cage up here. So,
Yeah. You can tell pretty quick whether the person that's critiquing your photo knows what they're talking about or not.
oh
Many
yeah.
times it's going to be somebody that's just there to be a keyboard warrior, and you just have thick skin on that type of stuff. But I think
Yeah.
I think the amount of rewards you get out of helping other people, in their journey, which is the same journey that I took, is super rewarding.
hmm Yeah. Okay. So, Dave, any last words on getting out of a slump?
I think we hit a lot, and I was the last thing I'll say. It's kind of can go across multiple things here. Experiment. Try
Yeah.
something different, and don't be afraid to try something different. I mean, there in reality, I don't. I think I don't want to say no one because doing something everyone or no one, but I don't think the chance of someone making their living on their iPhone is very high. Either definitely us three or someone listening. So it's this isn't life or death. This isn't I need to pay the bills, so the photo has to be perfect. So
Yeah.
just get out and enjoy it. And kind of going off of the very first one, if you're not enjoying it, literally take a break.
hmm
Stop
Yeah.
forcing it. If you're not enjoying it, if you're not enjoying it and you're not getting paid, why are you doing it?
Right. Yeah. Dwight, any final words?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of level set, where we are with today's technology. You remember the olden days where we didn't know what we had until we paid a lot of money for, X amount of photos out of a film roll. And, that was hit and miss. But, we're taking photos that are for the most part for the larger population are pretty much developed right away in your phone. So you just keep taking pictures, and you're going to find something that uh, is going to get you to the next exciting experiment. It's like playing around at golf. It's like, wow, I'm having a real tough day today, but then you hit that magical shot and the ball's 3 inches from the pin. That's going to keep you coming back for more. And I think you know um, don't be so hard on ourselves. Just get out there, have fun, make it fun. If it's not fun, take a break, try to get
Yeah.
inspired by others, try new locations, look around, shoot from different angles, and just have fun.
For me, I would have to say for a final word on this is, well, I mean, what gets me out of a slump anyway, and it may help others, I don't know, but try a new genre. And for me, that genre is macro. You can walk around your house and find things to take pictures of with a macro, whether it's the built-in macro or a macro lens. And once you get started, if you find something that's really cool, then you could start. Then you could start playing with different lighting on it and on the subject and things like that. And it kind of rejuvenates that creative energy that you have within yourself. So, um, so those are some ways that you can get out of a slump. And um, ultimately, if you're not in a slump, that's a good thing. But I mean, we've all been there, and I'm sure if you're watching this or listening to it, you've probably been in a slump too at some point. So if you ever do find yourself in a slump, come back to episode 147 and just take a listen to the first 35 minutes, and maybe something will help you hop out of it. Um, so thank you, David, for passing that idea along. I think it was a pretty good discussion,
Mhm.
and now I guess we'll move on to our recent photos. So don't forget, folks, if you're watching the YouTube video, great, you're going to see them here now. But if you're listening on the podcast player, and I recommend listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, or either that or Overcast. I think those are two really good ones because you'll be able to see the images on the screen, and those I think are the two most popular players that people listen to based on the metrics that I get. And uh, one real quick little thing before we go to our recent photos is Todd just joined us a bit late, but something I found that pushes you is to submit photos to a 52-week assignment. Mobiography
Mhm.
does this. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's something that we completely overlooked is uh, these little challenges like a uh, even a 365 challenge. Uh, I did that in 2012, and there was times when before I started it, there was times when I thought, oh, I'm in a bit of a slump, but whatever. But once I got into it, I was able to start seeing stuff every day. And there's a
Mhm.
friend of the show, Greg Novacek, from I believe he's in Michigan. He's been doing a photo a day for probably 7 or 8 years based on the numbers because he posts when he puts a post out, he puts the day of the year, the numbered day of the year, like 165, whatever it is,
Mhm.
with a slash, and then 3,000 and something. Like so, it looks like he's been doing it for probably 8 or 9 years. A picture a day, taking and posting or whatever, or at least posting, maybe taking, I don't know, but that's another good way to get out of a rut
Mhm.
or get out of this slump is to start posting every day or taking a picture every day. When I did mine, I took it, edited, and posted it all in the same day. So that was a challenge. But you know, God bless the friend of mine that challenged me to do that. If it wasn't for her, I never would have done it.
Mhm.
And I haven't done it. I did do it once. After that, another friend challenged me to do a black and white photo a day for a
Mm.
year. So that was interesting. So another couple of good ideas. Thanks, Todd, for chiming in
Mhm.
and putting that one out there. Okay, we'll move on to our recent photos, and I've got these queued up. And Dwight, we're going to start with yours.
It looks kind of washed out on here, but maybe you kind of get the idea. Yeah, this is a photo of a bench at the mission. There was a lot of flowers around there, and I use various apps to get the painterly. These are actual brush strokes with the Apple Pencil to kind of get this
Mm.
look.
Oh, cool.
And I had I superimposed the gal sitting on the bench. The bench is actually there. I superimposed the gal on the bench,
Oh
and
man,
then
you'd never know it.
yeah, and then I turned it into kind of a watercolorish. Yeah, so this isn't run through an AI app. It's essentially, I pick my brush strokes. I pick my my actual brush that I'm using. I have
Mhm.
to manipulate, the settings, the offset or the limits. How accurate do I want the brush strokes to be? and then I'll finish it off with a little bit of sharpening, kind of a watercolor paper look over the top. That part is AI. But yeah, and then added a frame. Just it's an old mission. Just wanted to make it look old.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of retro too. You can't really tell.
But so yeah. I mean, well, you kind of can because, well, I should say, the very kind of long looks like she's wearing a skirt.
Yeah.
And it almost looks like she has long hair. Of course, this is almost like an impressionist style, so it almost looks like she has long hair going down, where maybe it's a ponytail going down her one side. So she definitely matches. Like Greg said, you would have puppy, you would have had no idea she wasn't part of the scene. And honestly, and this is something I've said before, is like, I can't draw. I don't have the hand-eye coordination, the drawing ability, but I can take a photo and then you edit it to make it look like a drawing, so I can get myself at least halfway there. And this, honestly, if you would put this on a canvas, it would look like a painting.
Yeah,
what's interesting I love the border here too. I love where the border looks like they're brush strokes that just kind of ended, and you just didn't want to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, I did this one time where, excuse me, Laguna Beach is a very popular place for people to set up their easel and do their paintings. Excuse me. And so I took a picture of the same scene that they were painting. They had paint all over them. There was stuff all over the ground, this and that. I took a picture, and then I did one of these, and they were just, they were blown away. And they're like, man, you got to come to our camera club or our artists club. I'm like, I'm not an artist. Just, I'm playing around with this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I don't have any cleanup. But yeah.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And it's 99.9% impossible to tell that this originated from a photo. And I should note to everybody that if you go to the show notes on our Facebook page for the podcast, you'll see our before images, our pre-edited images for all the stuff that we're going to talk about here. But yeah, it's the colors are pretty cool. And I'm gonna compare this to the original and see so the colors, Dwight, are they close to the original colors, like that that burgundy shade and the earth tones and that, are they all pretty close to the original colors? Or
part of my process is modifying the colors before I do the painting, so I added some contrast and a few other things. So this is going to be just a little bit darker. The original scene is much brighter. It's it's middle of the day, so it's pretty toned down in this image.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I keep saying it. I wish I could do stuff like this, but I just don't. I don't think I can't find it within my brain to come up with something like this. With the different textures and things like that. I think my brain is too fixed on just doing photos. That's the only way I can put it about that. But
I might do a series at some point on how I do this. It's a long process. It takes a while, but you can do it. I promise.
Well, we're gonna we might as well announce it. What the hell? We're gonna have a YouTube only series called Dwight's Edits. And we don't know when we're going to start. We don't know how often they're going to come out. But when we get a chance, we're going to sit down and Dwight's going to show us how whether it's a simple edit of a photo or create something like this. But we're going to put these out there. And again, it's YouTube only because it's a very visual thing. So it wouldn't make any sense to do an audio podcast of it. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel for something like that. And hopefully we'll start those soon. I was going to do like an official announcement thing, but what what the heck? I saw this and I thought, I just couldn't hold back. So, so yeah, look for that sometime in the near future. But our next image is this one from Dave.
Yeah. So this was actually taken. I just left a restaurant, and the clouds were. You have the two different type of clouds, and the tree right there in the middle. And it's one of those times where you just kind of walk out and go, "Wow." And I did the ultra wide with this and cropped it in. So I cropped out, and looking at it now, I can see where I missed a little bit of a store down below, but it's really hard to see. Because the original photo, you see the whole parking lot. And I did brighten the image because everything was so bright, the tree was really in shadows. So I really brightened up the image, did a little things with the blue, because it was more of a darker blue versus this lighter blue. But just the fact that, like I said, the clouds, how you have, like I said, the two different types here, and they're layered. And honestly, this is just how it looked. And it was just one of those, if I would have come out 5 minutes before, 5 minutes later, wouldn't have gotten this image.
Yeah, I saw your before photo, and I saw this one first, and I saw the before photo, and this is a magic transformation because the original photo did not draw me into the sky. It drew me into the cars in the parking lot. In this case, you've got the tree, which is the subject, but then you've got all of the leading lines of the clouds coming down saying, hey, this is the subject down here. And then it looks like you modified the hue a little bit of the blue, or you did no, that's kind of cool. This edit made the photo interesting. Otherwise, I probably would have looked at it, saw those cars, and never looked up into the sky.
Yeah. Yeah, the two different types of clouds is really interesting. And I'm gonna kind of take a hazard to guess that the bigger, puffier ones at the lower altitude were probably moving faster than the other ones.
If I can remember, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but this is inspiring to me, Dave, and I'll tell you why. Our camera club is about to have our final meeting of our season. Our season runs September to June. We take the summers off because people are too busy. And we've been throwing ideas around for assignment photos for next year, and one of them is a lonely tree, and this would fit that assignment category right to a T here. So this is inspiring to me because I'm thinking I got to go out to the country and try to find a tree standing all by itself in a field, but no, I can find one in town, and if I have to crop stuff off the bottom to make it stand out, then so be it. But so this is a pretty inspiring photo for me, just for that reason. And of course I do like the treatment that you've given it with brightening it up and whatnot. I took a quick peek at the before picture, but I'll definitely be studying the after one as well, or studying it more, comparing it to this one, just to see what all you've done to it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and like Dwight said, one thing is, don't be afraid to crop.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
For me to get the overall kind of feel with the leading lines, I couldn't have done that if I wouldn't have taken the whole thing, including the parking lot. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to chop that off there instead of making this a very tall, skinny. It's still portrait. It's still, not square, but the original photo was much skinnier and taller.
Yeah.
So that's one thing is, when you take the photo, especially with almost everyone having an ultra wide now, you're going to be cropping. You can crop. So you can say, I want this middle part. I'll get rid of this. I'll just crop it, and then I'll deal with what's left.
Yeah. Well, job well done.
Thank you.
So this is my first one. It's a macro. I wasn't going to put a macro in, but then I thought, I kind of like it, so I did. just I don't want people to get tired of seeing macros all the time from me, but I call this one twisted and tied up, I think. So it's along a fence line where I walk the dog just about every day, and there's all kinds of this stuff along this fence line, and now it's slowly growing in with some foliage and whatnot. But it just caught my eye that it's like it's holding a stick.
Mhm.
It's kind of weird that way. It kind of gives it life in a way where it's holding on to something, and it's just the vine just kind of grows around. Um, the on the right hand side is growing around a smaller or a small like a the smaller part's growing around the little bigger part, and then it kind of comes down either up and around or down and around. I'm not sure which way it went, but it's got a hold of this stick that looks like it's been cut off. So
Mhm.
I mean, what the history of that is, I'm not sure. Maybe it's like I say, it's on a like a chain link fence, and these things are all over this fence. And so I mean, I could spend
Mhm.
hours looking for cool things like this to take pictures of. But and the Luminar Neo added, of course, the reflex 240 telephoto lens with the 300 millimeter macro attachment. I carry them things with me everywhere I go pretty well. And what I like about Neo is it's just so good at the sharpening, and this is a thing that I learned from Scott Galloway, Scott Forgot on Instagram, where he tries to put as much as he can, I guess, but the closest parts to the camera are what are in focus. And it, I'm finding I'm doing that a little more with my macro stuff now too, because sometimes you can get the wrong thing in focus, and it just spoils the image. So focus peaking, and very valuable tool there for shooting.
Yeah, and one thing when I first saw this, I thought I saw the on the right side, the fencing part. I thought the vine part that was going up and down was bits of barbed wire,
Oh yeah.
just because how it's wrapped around the stick there.
Hmm.
How it would just cut the wire would be wrapped around parts just to give you that extra little without the barbs, but some kind of wire around it. But looking at the detail, I can see the brown
Hmm.
that's more natural. So yeah, and the fact that you do have the goldish brown, you got a little bit of a gold tone to the brown of the vine part, and then the
Yeah.
green in the background. I like that color combination too.
Yeah. The sun was hitting it late in the day, which I like. It kind of caught my eye as well.
I've got a cat infiltrating me now, so those
Ah,
rubbing sounds you're hearing are Zeus rubbing up against my microphone. So I probably have a tail on my face now. Yep, there we
yep.
go. Yeah,
I
nice.
have a
Looks like
dog on my lap as we speak.
yeah, yeah. Greg, what I like about that one is your focus point. That's right on, and that's a good reminder for me. Sometimes I like to show depth in macro, which doesn't make sense because if you focused on the barbed wire or whatever it is behind it, then this hand holding the stick would be just a big blob kind of sitting there. And I also think this is another good example of we've got everything around us at all times that we can take photos of. So we don't necessarily have to drive 100 miles. I mean, it's right here. It's just finding the right place, the right item, and the right composition. And I think you've nailed it here. And I think
Mhm.
the rust tones up against the green background, I think that looks super cool. But yeah,
Hmm.
that
Yeah, thanks.
looks like it could have been a plant or something that just grew through that barbed wire and just, at some point, like a vine of some type that just broke off. But that's really, yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just putting the dog down. Yeah, yeah. You can never go wrong with macro, in my opinion. maybe I'm a little biased because I just love it so much, but it's always fun finding new things like this. And I should say too that I took a picture of something similar to this with the macro, built-in macro of my iPhone, and it just doesn't look nearly as good as with the lenses. So there's always that.
Yeah, there's too much in focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dwight, here's your second one.
Yeah. So again, in a slump a little bit, but I figured I can find something, at the Mission, and I did. I mean, these are old Mission bells that uh, they would come out and ring them at certain times of the day. They still do, and I use the reflex 240 millimeter telephoto on my point 0.5 lens, the only one we can use it on, right, with a third party app.
Or the
And I
five
was
times.
pretty far away from this thing, from these things. I was all the way across the rose garden when I caught this, and my intention was to get the bells in focus, using focus peaking, and then kind of looking through the roses. And this is the one that I ran. I think, for me, I want to start doing a little bit more color grading. Once I'm done with my editing, I think that's a logical last step. What do you really want it to look like? And in this case, I went through a lot of the Visco VSCO um, film emulations, and I settled on a C4, which is a chromatic collection. It's inspired by the aesthetic of early color photography. It embodies the bright and bold look of mid-century analog film, strong primary colors mixed with a muted neutral tones, perfect for portraits, environments, and stylized editorial. What I found in this one is it really just softened everything for me. I did a little bit of editing in there, in the app, once I had the preset selected, but kind of gave it a little bit more of a warmer tone, and just, to me, doesn't look like an iPhone photo, and that's what I was going after.
Hmm.
And like I said, a lot of times, and Dwight, you mentioned this, that sometimes you go through and iPhones do have a particular look to them. And that's what Apple does. They want iPhones to have a particular look, but having that look after look after look, it does limit the individuality and the own creative unless you go in and edit it yourself. And like I said, I love the fact also and I don't know if it's just the aged look of the Mission or if it was a little, I hate to use the term dirty, but the plaster over the brick has that kind of a darker look to it. Like there's something on there.
Yeah, that might be some retrofit cement. Our ground moves a lot out here, earthquakes, what have you. And that might be that, and it might be from the film emulation as well. I might have taken that down a little bit.
It just adds that extra little bit of texture too. And of course, the flowers in the foreground, which they're out of focus, but they add that pop of color without distracting too much, being, because they're not in focus.
Yeah, and it gives me an opportunity for depth. I'm really trying to work on foreground, midground, and background too. So
yeah, and like what Dave said about the plaster, it has some definition to it. You know, it if I was editing, I probably would have added more definition to it, but I think that would be a mistake because I think it would make it look too quote unquote dirty. Um, but I love the look of this. The bells are tack sharp, which is a testament of that lens and how clear it is. Now you had originally said, Dwight, that it was on your 0.5, but I think you meant your 5 times camera.
5 times, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
And the you know the fact that you can see the wall through the flowers, you know, it just verifies that it's not a portrait mode shot, you know, with that blur, because a portrait mode shot would not be um, as good as that. It may see through and pick up the wall in some areas of the photo, but this is, you could tell it's um, an optical telephoto shot, and I really like the idea of showing the depth, like the foreground, middle
Mhm.
ground, and background. And although there's not a lot of background here, the trees are starting to get a little blurry because they're further back than the bells, which, you know, there's your background.
Mhm.
Um, but the foreground, definitely beautiful bouquet or bokeh in that foreground. And um, yeah, just you would not know that this was an iPhone photo because of the way it's been shot
Mhm.
and edited. So
Yeah, thank
um,
you. I had my finger on that clarity slider, on the sharpen slider, you know, and I'll drag stuff around. I put it up real high, and it looked too iPhoney to me. So I brought it down. I actually probably reduced it a little bit, and I might have added just a slight bit of halation or bloom to it. I can't remember. Maybe I didn't, because that would have boosted those highlights up a little bit too high. But yeah, so I'm going mostly the other way. And if I
mhm.
do bring texture out, it's not globally, you know, I'll black mask it and then brush it in where I want to see it usually. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's been very well captured and very well edited.
thank you.
Mhm.
And Dave, this is your second one.
Yep. So this was taken during my run.
And
Um,
I would like to add real quick that
mhm.
it's so unfortunate that the listeners can't see the live photo.
Yeah, that freaked
You
me
Yeah,
out. I
know,
it's
was like,
true. Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
but I love that you take live photos, Dave, for this reason, and this is perfect because in the live photo, the runners actually start further back and then they start
Mhm.
running to the left in the live photo for like 3 seconds, and it's really cool because it puts you there in the moment, which is what they're meant to do.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, so go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. And also when you're doing an action like this, the live photo being basically it was partially dumb luck. But if it wasn't, I could have used a live photo to space the runners where there's runner, tree, runner, space, tree, runner. So, you know, each runner looks like they're in their own little section there.
Yeah.
And now, like I said, originally this was heavy green. This is not, you can, looking at the photo, it has that yellowish green look to it. In reality, this is like green, just like heavy straight green everything,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it looked good. But one thing I didn't like about it was everything was the same shade, so the foreground, the background, and it just kind of compressed everything a little too much.
Hmm.
um I did like the fact that the path here, at least you could see the path. You know, there are places where it's really hard to tell there's a path in, in some of these paths. So, and we had, what was it, less than a month ago, we had really severe storms come through, and a lot of things got blown over. I think they even said we had a few tornadoes, which is very unusual for us.
Mm.
So they did a great job fixing this, and I like the way that I the boomerang of the path here, where you kind of go off to the right and back to the left.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's two boomerangs, and I think what really makes this photo, is the use of light here. And if you see the light coming in on the lower left, and then it comes right up to that, basically draws you right into that first runner, and then you have a line of runners that run along the boomerang effect of the light. So you've got kind of that triangular composition there, which is not boring for the eye to look at. and then you kind of look down a little bit and you see the trail in the bottom there, which is a kind of a secondary boomerang, if you will, that could just kind of draws your eyes through it. I think if that light wasn't there, it would be more of an ordinary kind of photo. But the way that light diffuses across the frame here, I think, is really what makes it, at least for me.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I really do like the lighting, because that's something that I've been picking up from these, guys on YouTube like Gavin Hardcastle. Um, oh gosh, their names are escaping me now, but I watched about 3 or 4 or 5 channels, and they're not iPhone photographers, but they're just photographers, and
Mhm.
I've learned so much about light from these guys, and I find my eye gets, I see light a little better. I think light captures my eye in a scene, and that's exactly what happens here. And where it captures me the most is on that big tree on the right, where that runner in the blue shirt is. Um, that my eye gets drawn to that right away, and but then because there's 3 runners, just the way you've got them, like, was this how it was presented to you, Dave, or did you pick a key photo to get them to where
Uh,
they are?
this is actually the way it was presented to me.
Okay, cool.
Now,
Um,
I did take a photo right before this where they were a little before they hit the bend going in the line here.
oh
But
yeah,
then I just took I was like, and I just happened again, dumb luck here, took the second photo and they just spaced out this way.
yeah. Well, it just happened perfectly.
Yeah.
It's such a good. I'm surprised the people who are putting on the run, like if they saw this photo, I'd be surprised if they didn't want to do something with it, for whether it's for promotional reasons or what. But
Mhm.
it's such a cool image because the way you've captured them, the timing, the area, the location, and yes, I remember seeing the before photo, and this does look so much better because it changes that almost that mundane straight green bit of scenery, and it gives it some depth, it gives it some contrast, and nothing looks overexposed, even where the bright sunlights are,
Mhm.
sunlight hits that small tree at the bottom of the frame near the left there. Everything looks really good, and with that boomerang track and everything, all that stuff, it's just a really cool image. And I think compositionally, the position of the trees throughout the frame, I think, is really good. Sometimes you can get too many trees and get one too close to the edge or whatever, but I think just the way
Mhm.
they are works really well because especially with that path on the right where it makes the turn, you just miss part of where it makes the turn, but that's okay because you know exactly that's what it's doing.
Right.
And the trees on the left, they're not too close to the edge, I don't think, but the runners are spaced out almost perfectly within the frame. Same distance from the edge for the ones on each end, and the one in the middle is just a little off center, but that's okay because there's a tree right there, and I think that person could have been in jeopardy of being hidden by that tree had you waited like a fraction of a second longer to
Mhm.
capture this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
so
looking at the live photo, letting it run at the
mhm.
very end, that middle runner's right behind that tree.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
And
and the
also
one
this
I was
oh,
gonna say
sorry,
the
Greg.
one ahead would probably be disappeared,
Mhm.
in front of
Down the
that and
path.
behind that tree too.
Yeah, and this was also a matter of, and I hate to use the term dumb luck, but that's the only thing I can say, me stopping here because it's a
Oh yeah.
combination of it's kind of hard to tell because it's really hard to tell how steep something is a lot of times in photos, but this is kind of at the top of a little bit of a hill and you're about to go down and back up.
Mhm,
So I was just stopping anyway to catch my breath and let the people pass me.
mhm.
Because you notice the path here is just around 2 feet wide.
Yeah. Yeah, there wouldn't be
It,
much room for passing.
no, no, no. If someone's coming up behind you, you literally have to step off into the plants, the
The poison
bushes.
ivy.
Well, let's hope not. But yeah, you had
Yeah,
to
really.
step off to let the people by you because
Yeah.
there's not enough room side by side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, it's been, very well captured, and again, another very good edit.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is my second one. This is a river out in the country from probably about 10 minutes from town here. And this is where my dad used to fish a lot when we were kids, and we would catch fish in here. Um, I don't know what kind of fish you might get in here now, if any, but back in those days, you can get good brown trout. Oh man, he caught a brown trout that was 6 pounds, which was pretty good size for the little rivers and that at that time.
Mhm.
So he took it to the taxidermy and got it mounted and had it on the wall. But um, it's this and this is the location for my first and last ever attempt at kayaking.
Ah,
My dad had this old wooden kayak. I don't know where he got it. I don't know what he ended up doing with it. But we went down to this river and we plumped it in the water, and I got in, and it was so tippy. Like, I don't know how. I mean, the kayaks of today are a lot wider and flatter on the bottom, and they're way better. This was like a canoe with everything closed in except for the part where you sit, and it was so tippy that I think I lasted maybe 2 minutes, and I just said, "Okay, pull me out. I'm getting out." So he pulled me closer to the shore, and I got out. But and the fact that the mosquitoes were just about eating me alive. But this is just this river flows toward town and goes over the escarpment and where Inglis Falls is, which is probably the most popular waterfall in the area. Um, and but what caught my eye was the lily pads and all that stuff. And
mhm.
I didn't have any lenses with me. I didn't have any filters with me. But in Luminar Neo, I was able to just kind of somehow get the glare off the water enough to let those little lily pads stand out. And that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the lily pads, the way they kind of follow. It isn't just doesn't seem random, and it isn't just covering everything. So there's a flow to the lily pads themselves,
Hmm.
and I like that. And the reflections and the fact that you can see more of the sky in the reflection than you can in the sky itself.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's one of
assuming
the
because the
things.
water polarized it somehow.
Yeah. Well, also the angle, I think, of the camera.
Mhm.
But that's one of the things that I learned from these YouTubers that I watch is if you're going to have a scene like this, like ideally I would have had no sky, but the shot was wide enough that I pretty well had to have a little bit. Um, but also that one tree with the brown leaves, I wanted to keep that in the frame as well. But something that they kind of stress is to not have any white sky or bright sky in a forest scene like this. So, um, but again, hard to get away from it.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to figure out. So the focal point on this is the grass in the middle,
Yeah, I
or
think I actually.
did you add a blur to the foreground, or is that how it came out?
Well, I tapped to focus on that first big tree in the middle of the
Okay,
grass.
okay,
So down at the bottom, I used the Mystic um, feature in
uh-huh,
Luminar Neo, so that probably softened up things a little bit. But I also took a mask and erased that effect around the middle where the grass is and those trees because I didn't want them to be as blurry. So I think that's what you're seeing. Good eye,
yeah,
Dwight. Good
okay,
eye.
okay, yeah. I could tell you use. It definitely looks like Mystic on there. Um, Yeah, I mean the lily pads kind of draw, that's your kind of your lead into the photo, and then if you look around the point, they continue downstream. It looks like all the way down.
Yeah.
But an interesting use of the Mystic filter on there. I was just curious as to how you what you used to get that. But yeah, that's fun playing around with that stuff, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the masking, the way the masking works in Luminar Neo is it took a bit of a learning curve because you can paint the mask in or you can erase it out, and it uh, it was almost counterintuitive for me at the beginning, but then once I got to realize what it did and how it worked, then it's not so bad. Like if I want to paint in an effect, then that's where I'm painting it in. That's the only place that gets affected by that, like whether it's Mystic or Glow or whatever. But if I erase it, then everything has it except for where I erased, and that takes it out or something like that. So it's a fun program to play with, and
I think you can isolate the hue of that or the color of that grass too to create a mask now in Neo. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the old fishing hole, where I spent some time with my dad when I was a kid.
Wow, that's cool.
So that is our recent photos. I think that's the last one. Yep. And get us all back. Hang on. There we are. Now I can just go like this. There we go.
I'm getting the sun. I got my war paint on.
Dave, we got a zebra.
I see that. It's almost like the reverse of the eye black that baseball and football players put underneath their eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, Dwight, you got to deal with some zebra stripes here. You're overexposing.
Yeah.
I've got blown out highlights on me.
Yeah, there you go. That's so funny. I'm gonna have to screenshot that later.
I'm gonna have to line them up. There we
Profile
go.
pic.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, I guess that's a show. Good discussion on how to get out of a slump, and just looking at our recent photos helps me stay rejuvenated, and helps keep my creative juices flowing, because you guys are able to capture things that I can't. And I can go for a walk through the woods and get something like what you got there, Dave, but I won't get the runners running through, so that's something different. But Dwight, I don't have anything like some of the stuff you have down there, like the Mission and things like that. So there are some places around that have some old structures like that. There's even a little plane, a little, like, kind of like a single engine Cessna style plane. There's a crash site about 15 minutes out of town. And a few years ago, my wife and I took our dog to find it, and sure enough, there it is. And that was pretty cool. So I might take that walk again this summer, and capture it again. But there's always something that you can do to get yourself out of a rut, and we hope that some of the things that we talked about help you do that. But my hope, my even bigger hope, is that you never get into a rut. So, but if you do, you know where to go. You know where to look.
Life is too short to be in a rut.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys. Great discussion as always. And
always fun.
We'll see everybody on the next one.
Have a good evening. Have a great couple weeks, everybody.
Have a great one.
See you soon.